and welcome to the Luke Lunchtime Takeaway. We've been making a journey through Luke's Gospel week by week over the past year, and we're nearly at the end. We're coming now to the story of what the sufferings of Jesus, what we call his passion, as Jesus goes to his cross and dies in our place. One of the biggest struggles that many of us have is with our mental health. We have to go through days where our moods are really bleak, where the day seems particularly dark throughout the day, where we struggle with anxiety or fear, or with a deep sense of personal failure and inadequacy, and all sorts of dark moods inhabit our minds. Now, why do I start by mentioning that? Because, first of all, I want to say it's okay to admit that sometimes you're not okay. And we need to be honest about our mental health. But here's the question: how can God ever understand my darkest thoughts? And I want to say very positively, of course he can, because of the story we're going to look at today. Come with me to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus has just celebrated the Passover with his disciples in the upper room in Jerusalem. It's the night before Good Friday. He's going to be crucified the next day. He knows what is coming. But he is going out to the garden to pray in the darkness, knowing what he faces. And he's being tempted to give up and run away. It would have been the easy option. He knows that the high priests are plotting to kill him, so why not flee away and end his ministry and give up altogether? He did not submit himself to death easily. It was a huge cost to him as a human being. And for him, this final decision, whether to obey his Father's will and to suffer and to die, it was the deepest anguish that his soul ever went through. In his very human heart and his human mind, he has to wrestle with this temptation as to whether he will obey. So he cries out to his Father in verse 42, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me." And when he says this cup, he means this cup of suffering. In various places in the Bible, suffering poured out by God upon us is described as being like a cup, a judgment that we receive. And he doesn't want to drink that cup if he can help it. If there is some way that he can avoid this suffering, might it be possible? And he's referring, first of all, to the physical pain and the torture and the agony of crucifixion, but he's also talking about something more. He knows that there is a sense that he will be separated from the love of his Father, that he will not experience the Father's love, only the wrath of God falling upon him in his human suffering. And he will have to endure all the wrath of God upon himself. And that truly and understandably terrifies him. And yet his calling is to be the perfectly obedient human being. Adam was created without sin, and yet he did not obey. Adam failed. Jesus is the second Adam, the one who has come to obey where the first Adam failed to obey. And yet that obedience is not something that you can take for granted. And therefore it is with great cost, if you like, that Jesus says these words: "Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." This was his prayer as he continued to wrestle with the emotional reality, the spiritual reality of what he is about to suffer. And Luke tells us in verse 43, "There appeared to him an angel from heaven strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling to the ground." This was a profound agony, and he needed the strength that the angel gave him to endure and to survive that as a human being. But when he rose from prayer, when his agony and his praying was finished, he was resolved he was going to go to his cross. So what that tells us is, whatever you've been through, whatever you have endured in terms of mental torment, Jesus has been there. Jesus has suffered. Jesus has endured. Jesus has plumbed the depths of anything that you or I have to go through. Now, this is the point in the story where Jesus begins to confront the powers of darkness that are ranged against him. Judas comes into the garden, and with him are a crowd of guards from the temple, the Jewish temple guards, and they've come with a warrant to arrest Jesus. And Judas comes near to Jesus to give them a sign. Here's a group of men. Which one have we come to arrest? Well, it's the one I'm going to kiss. And he approaches Jesus in order to kiss him. And Jesus says, verse 48, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? What Jesus is doing is he's probing Judas's mind. He's saying, look, they've determined to arrest me anyway. Why do you want to stand with them? Why do you want to be on their side? Why don't you come back to the side of the light and of righteousness and stand with me? Now, rather stupidly, Peter, who is with Jesus, grabs a sword and goes to attack the temple guards, and he manages to cut off the ear of one of the temple guards. And Jesus rebukes him and says, put your sword away. That's not the way that my kingdom operates. And he takes the ear and he replaces it and heals it. Jesus performs a miracle. In the midst of all this darkness and everything they're going to do to him, he still performs a miracle of healing even then. And then Jesus rebuked his captors. Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. They have come to him with weapons and maybe chains to wrap him in, or ropes to bind him. And they are intent on doing evil. And what has Jesus done? He has performed a sign of healing. He has saved this man's ear. And all they can do is rope him up and take him away as a prisoner. He reminds them that they are cowards to do this in the darkness. He was teaching clearly in the temple. He was making his claims. They could have arrested him then. Why didn't they do that? Why do they have to come in this underhand way and arrest him in the darkness? Again, he's probing their minds and probing their consciences to see what they really think. And he is letting his light probe into the darkness. As we follow Jesus to his trial and to his cross, there is a battle going on here, a battle between light and darkness. Those who want to do evil here are gripped by a terrible darkness. They are intent on doing a dreadful evil, and they were responsible for their own actions. And yet, God is determined through their evil to achieve the greatest good of all, the greatest triumph of light over darkness. But what this story also tells us is that Jesus has plumbed the depths of our mental torments. He has been there himself. There is no pit so deep that he has not gone into that pit himself, and he has endured that suffering and those mental torments. Whatever you are going through, Jesus has been there and he has endured worse. Therefore, come and surrender your life to him this Easter if you've never done that before. Come and put your trust in the one who has overcome evil and death and despair and darkness, who has broken death's power, who has gripped Satan and held him in chains by the victory of his death over evil. And when you come and put your trust in Jesus, you will find him to be the one who transforms your mind, and the one who brings healing, and the one who can be your companion on your darkest days, the one who will be there with you, strengthening you to bring you through those times and to put a song of joy in your soul. Do come with us as we continue the journey this Easter. This Sunday, Palm Sunday, we'll be thinking about Jesus entering Jerusalem. Then I'll see you again next Thursday for the trial of Jesus. And on Good Friday, we'll be meeting as a church to explore his crucifixion and his resurrection on Easter Sunday. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.